Hi everybody, Gene here. A recent study from Harvard University showed that 36% of the residents of the United States of America are experiencing severe loneliness, with some groups, such as young adults, having that number be over 60%. Not only is loneliness no fun to experience, there are also significant short and long-term health consequences that come from experiencing loneliness. Today in the podcast, we talk about and tap for loneliness and disconnection. This is Gene Monterastelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast recorded live to tape. This is episode 547, originally aired February 22nd, 2023. Hi everyone, I hope this finds you well wherever you are, whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Today we're going to talk about and tap for disconnection and loneliness. Before we do that, two quick announcements. Number one, we have a free 10-part guide on how you can use tapping to eliminate self-sabotage. All you need to do is go to Tapping Q&A, click on that big blue button, and you can sign up. If you happen to be listening to this right now in the website, up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the same blue button. Enter your email address, and over the next 10 days, every day, we'll send you a small bite-sized tool to help you to eliminate self-sabotage with tapping. Then, at the end of 10 days, you can choose the one that makes the most sense for you. Secondly, a big shout out and thank you to everybody who supports the Tapping Q&A podcast. The Tapping Q&A podcast supporters are people who voluntarily support the podcast so that you can get these free resources over and over again. The people who support the podcast also get some amazing thank you gifts. If you would like to support the podcast and receive some of those thank you gifts, all you need to do is go to tappingqna.com/support. Now, personally, I think loneliness is possibly the grossest emotion to feel. Not the most painful, but for me, the most toxic. Just because it's not just about what I'm experiencing in the moment, but it's really easy to start to extrapolate the fact that I'm not around other people as a value judgment about myself. I am lonely and disconnected because other people don't want to be around me. It's too much effort. It's impossible. All of those things. So much so, in the 90s, when I lived in a giant house with a bunch of roommates in Washington, D.C., we would throw parties, like you do. And as much as I enjoy hosting and throwing a party, I'm also typically one of the first people who are ready to go to bed, and I would like you to leave my house so I can clean it up a little bit, go to bed, and get on with my weekend. And instead of shooing people out of the house, I learned very quickly that there was an easy way to have everybody leave under their own accord. And the way I would do that is I would approach a group of people and I would join the conversation. And over the course of the first couple of minutes of me joining the conversation, I would find a way to steer the conversation towards loneliness. And loneliness is one of those things that because it's so gross and someone else is experiencing it, we almost treat it like a disease, like I'm going to catch it from you. And so quickly, that group of people I was talking to decided it was time for them to call it an evening. Then I would move on to another group of people and I would do the exact same thing. I would work my way into the conversation as the host because it was people that I knew. I would steer the conversation towards loneliness and group two would go away. Well, as groups of people start leaving a party, everybody else starts to think, I guess the party's over. It's time for us to move on. And so in 2 or 3 conversations over the course of 10 or 15 minutes, I could clear my house out so I could do a little cleaning and I could head to bed. Now, as clever as that is as a tactic, it also leans into the importance and value it is for us to be responding to disconnection and loneliness. And I am guessing you are much like me. In the last 3 years of my life, I've experienced more senses of loneliness and disconnection than I have in a really, really long time. I can remember there was a point, sometimes a little more than a year ago, where there was a 9-week period, and I figured this out. There was a 9-week period in which the only place I sat down was at my desk, was in my living room, and was on my bed. I left my house every single day. I picked up food, I visited other folks, and took little walks, but I literally never sat anywhere other than my apartment because of the nature of what was going on in the world and the fact that I was in a city with 8 million people stacked on top of each other. We were trying to take care of each other. And so it makes sense that at this moment in history, loneliness and disconnection are so high. And at the exact same time, the same study, and I've included a link to the study in the show notes. So if you go into your podcast app, or if you just go up above the player, if you're listening to this on the website, you'll see the link to that Harvard study. That in addition to talking about the fact that people are experiencing so much more loneliness, the study also goes into talking about the consequence of this particular thing. Just in the abstract, it even says that loneliness is shown, the potentially steep cost of loneliness, including early mortality and a wide array of serious physical and emotional problems, including depression, anxiety, heart disease, substance abuse, and domestic abuse. So that sounds like something that we should be responding to. Not just that it feels bad, but if it lingers for a long period of time, it can grow into something else. So today, we're just going to spend a few minutes tapping on the sense of loneliness and disconnection and trying to feel a little more grounded. So I'd encourage you to tap along with me, tap on the side of the hand, take a nice big deep breath, and just move from tapping point to tapping point, repeating after me. I recognize the fact, because of the current state of the world, I'm experiencing more loneliness. I'm experiencing more disconnection. I really don't like the feeling of loneliness. Because the feeling of loneliness is more than what I feel in this moment. Loneliness feels like it's a statement about my life. It's not that I'm just alone in this moment, but it says that I'm disconnected from others. It's very easy for me to turn that sense of disconnection into feeling like I am good and not good enough. Into feeling I am not valuable enough. Into feeling that people don't like me. Into feeling like it is always going to be like this. As much as it is no fun to feel lonely, I give myself permission to feel it right now. Not because I want to feel lonely, but instead to honor the emotion. Loneliness wants me to be connected. Loneliness wants me to be loved. Loneliness wants me to be valued. And it is pointing out my sense of disconnection. And I am aware of that sense of disconnection. I'm aware of my desire and my need to be connected to others. Not because I'm weak, but because I'm human. As a human, I'm made to be connected to others. It is possible for me, even in these unique times, to be able to create a sense of connection. To be able to create a sense of belonging. I am worthy of connection. I am worthy of belonging. And just because I can't feel that right now, it does not mean I shouldn't experience it at all. I give myself permission to remember the times in the past where I have been connected. Knowing I can cultivate that again. I give myself permission to know that reaching out and connecting with others does not require me to make a complete connection right now. Instead, a simple first step can make a difference. Instead, remembering I am not alone will help that connection. I am part of the whole. Even though it doesn't feel like that in this moment. I give myself permission to recognize the possibility of connection. I give myself permission to allow that connection to happen in big and in small ways. Nice big deep breath. Now, unlike other emotions, sometimes doing a simple tap along like this is not enough. One of the things that I love about tapping is our ability to work on our own, but I also recognize the fact that sometimes when things are big, it's worthwhile to reach out to a practitioner and connect with someone else so they can be helpful. If nothing else, being connected when talking about the issue of being alone is actually a good, valuable thing because it gives us a new perspective because we have someone else present with us. So as you're experiencing this, know you're not alone. As you're experiencing this, know that others are in the same boat. And even though it can feel like sometimes loneliness is contagious, it's good to speak it out loud. It's good to connect with others around it. I hope you enjoyed it, the tap along. If you need to go back to the beginning, tap along to it again, please do that. Also, if you need to reach out, find connection, find support from someone else because the emotion is so raw and so deep. Do that. It's worthwhile to be able to journey with someone else. I regularly work with a practitioner, and I think everybody should if they have that available to them. If you know someone in your life who could appreciate a tap along like this, maybe you're not going to necessarily just email someone out of the blue, but maybe you had a conversation recently with someone who was sharing how they were disconnected and feeling alone. This would be a great way for them to feel a little more connected and for you to feel connected by reaching out and saying, hey, I remember that conversation. You might like this tool. Even if they don't listen, even if they don't hit play, the fact that you have reached out is going to create a connection which is beneficial for you and them. And I know it sounds so cheesy, and I always make fun of the fact of how cheesy it sounds, but I honest and truly believe in it. It really is that valuable. Simple, small things every single day make a difference. A little reach out will do that. If you've not subscribed to the Tapping Q&A podcast, I'd encourage you to do so. It is absolutely free. You can find it everywhere online. You can find audio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio. I use Overcast. Basically, anywhere you listen to audio, just search Tapping Q&A, turn on subscribe or follow, whatever it is appropriate in the device, in the application that you're using. And most importantly, turn on those notifications so that when new episodes come out, you are notified right away. If you got questions, you got comments, you got a topic you'd like us to cover in the future, please let me know. I can always be reached at support@tappingqa.com. You can find the entire podcast archive, almost 550 episodes, by going to tappingpodcast.com. There's over 170 hours of interviews, tap-alongs, instruction, absolutely free, waiting for you to dive in. For the Tapping Q&A podcast, it's Monterastelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Monterastelli Tapping Q&A. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Monterastelli and Tapping Q&A.